thing was, it was sort of September 1978, so it was just the week of my 9th birthday, and I found myself remembering all sorts of football attendances, football crowds, the minutes the goals were scored in, and I could mesmerise team sheets off by heart of, say, my favourite team, Everton, and England and Scotland and Ireland and England cricket team and things, and test match scores. You know, I knew I had a unique gift, so I thought I would really like to try and utilise this to my advantage for the rest of my life. You know, if possible, if I could make some money or just make people happy, that would be great. Around the time of my 9th birthday was the turning point where everything after that is, like, I can remember vivid detail of lots of things. But before that, even at 7 or 8, memory is very shady in comparison. You know, very, very shady. But as I say, just remarkable how my memory sort of transformed into where after turning 9 or 10, everything, I could pinpoint some things in vivid detail, whereas before there was no comparison to the detail. It's Monday, November the 4th, 2013. Well, the only reason I remember that one so well is because it was the day that President Barack Obama came to power. He won the election, and on the 4th of November 2008, which was Tuesday that year, and that's the reason I particularly remember that day, because it's sort of such an important day, because I'm a great President Obama fan, and it was 5 years ago today that he first came to power. I remember staying up to as late as I could to watch the coverage either side of midnight. It was a Wednesday, and the reason I remember was because my friends and we had a nice drink out at the local pub, and we had one of my favourite taxi drivers. So I remember that, I do remember that as a particularly nice, happy memory. And the next day, bonfire day, I had the most appalling hangover. The previous Saturday, the 31st of October, it was Everton 1, Man United 4, and Duncan Ferguson scored for Everton. And the following Saturday, November the 7th, Dion Dublin, the centre-forward, made his Aston Villa debut and was on Match of the Day. I remember watching that with my dad. We had a very nice lunch with my brother, my older brother James. He came with Richard, his best friend from school, for lunch. And they came up north to Liverpool from London, and we had a very special lunch together. And they were doing a Liverpool pub crawl for the weekend of their old favourite haunts from university years in the 1980s. I remember Sunday the 8th, my auntie came to visit, and I remember Dad had got us ready a very nice quiche. And that sticks in the memory as well. I think, although I would have liked thus far to have achieved a lot more in my life with work, I'm very proud of that I've tried to be a really kind person. Definitely. And that's probably my absolute strength thus far. I mean, a few years ago, coping on my own was a bit daunting. You know, even at the advanced stage of well into my 30s and things, because I'd never been used to that before, and I was a bit short on confidence and stuck, and in terms of knowing how to cope on my own, because I've always thrived on company. But I've knuckled down strongly and battled through hard And now I'm coping much, much, much better. Time is an invaluable healer if there's been pain in the past. At the time of both bereavements, it was very, very rough. Very, very rough. Now, if I think about my mum and dad now, I can cherish the memories. But back then, after separately both those two separate bereavements, thinking about it was very painful. When I think of really happy memories, I mean, I can think of it now, and it's really special. And it brings a smile to my face, certainly. It's a very happy memory. You know, like my girlfriend Elizabeth, and then her great friends Natasha and Fiona. And, I used to play football every day. And I used to absolutely love practice. So I used to practice until it got dark. And then Mum and Dad would call me in at the end of the garden from the playing fields at the back, because they were a bit worried it was 9 o'clock in the evening. It was getting dark. I mean, and just thinking around that general time, you know, life was golden every day, and that's a great goal to strive towards, a target towards getting back. But I don't, you know, I'm trying to be as happy as I was then, but I'm still working on it, because things are still tarnished a little bit with sadness and loneliness. And then again, also great, incredibly happy times from, let's say, you know, when I was 9 or 10, because that was, without a shadow of a doubt, the happiest year in my life, really, or period, general era in my life. With having a lot of problems with my health since then, you know, I'm working very hard to get back as happy as I was, and but I'm really trying to get there, and I'll never give up. And I mean, I really try and fight depression, because I mean, life is too short. You know, it's so cherished and special, and I hate being sad for 30 seconds. So I always push myself very hard with my coping skills to try and use the strength back of that general era around 1979 or so, to try and make today as happy and positive and bubbly as possible. I really, really try so hard to block the upsetting memories out, and I manage to do this quite well in the day, but every 2 or 3 nights I have terribly traumatic dreams of really upsetting past times in the past. And there's no real way I can, don't worry about that. There's no real way I can get rid of them by sort of using coping skills to hope that the nightmares will ease or cease. If there was, I'd do that immediately, because they're pretty rough, you know, and you sort of force yourself every hour to wake up to try and change the dream, that dream to end and begin something calmer or happier. It tends to only be in nightmares, but it tends to happen on average once every 2 nights. Okay, let's think really positive today, and then hopefully I'll have a really positive dream. Because if it was that simple, I'd do that immediately. But even if I think, well, every day I try and think positive, and if some days I'm thinking particularly positive, I can then be struck completely out of the blue by a nightmare or traumatic dream, and I have no control over it at all. And that's the most frustrating thing. I mean, we all make mistakes that we're really ashamed of, and like when I was 11, I really liked this girl at school called Rachel New, and I sent her a postcard, and unfortunately I couldn't get her to feel the same way about me, because she was taken with this boy in her immediate class called Darren. And I remember thinking, if it wasn't for the police, I'd like to murder Darren. Well, if Darren's out the picture, then Rachel might like me. And it was I'm really sick with guilt, that sort of thing. It can't be explained. I just thought, what? That was unbelievable. I mean, that was just great. It was so different to me in general. I mean, because, you know, anyone who knows me will say, you know, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard Phil say. I mean, if I look back, because there have been lots of days like for everybody with that, and if I look back at a memory at all sorts of years, and then I think of, well, that was a lovely, lovely memory, and then something traumatic happened later on in the day, And I think, if only that hadn't have happened, it would have been a golden, perfect day. As I say, I tend to, because I work very hard on blocking out traumatic memories and upsetting memories, I tend to only, my mind tends to only allow itself naturally to cherish and think of the happy memories, because that's my way of coping. Otherwise, I just can't really cope otherwise. I haven't had proper paid work for a long time, which has been very frustrating for me because of my health problems. I've struggled to, and that's been a great regret of mine, and it would be a fantastic goal to get back into even part-time paid work. It means absolutely everything. I mean, like when I was helping at the cafe, it was fantastic because I would just be lost, and so I was able to completely lose myself in another world, which I'm hoping very much I can do in the charity shop now. If I was revising for exams, and like, for example, 5 or 10 years after, I was trying to learn off by heart the highway code to take for a driving test. And I found that incredibly difficult to make the information stick. I'm not going to be able to pass this memory, this theory test. And then if I read the newspaper, like sports reports of reports of all sorts of things, then I can remember some things in detail, but I can remember things from many years ago in such minute detail that you would think that's sort of crazy. One extreme to the other almost. It's sort of crazy how individual minds work, individual memories, individual brains. There's no explanation really. I can't really put a theory to it. It's only occasionally I take to something like a Dr. Water naturally. Only very occasionally. I mean, that would be very occasional. If I'm trying to learn something, like on the computer, for example, I keep getting stuck, and it's embarrassing, and I feel very self-conscious, and it tries my patience. I think sometimes you need beyond the patience of a saint to persevere when you keep getting stuck all the time. I mean, like there was once when I was 25 or 26 in the 1990s, and I was going for this test, work test with job skills. I'd gone all dressed for an interview in one of my best suits and things, and I only got 45% average mark over the 3 tests, and that was something, an aspect I really wanted to be good at, and it was below par, and it was really frustrating. I can tell you immediately that was Thursday, the 1st of February 1996, and I had to be there for 9 o'clock in the morning, and I was there right on time. I can remember the day vividly, and that was quite a disappointing, alarming, very disappointing, alarming eye-opener, because I thought, hey, that's very bleak and worrying. I always thought I was quite strong on the phone. And if someone says a certain date, the sky will always come into mind, like a picture of the sky and the clouds, immediately, in sort of like a vision in my mind. And I'll immediately try and think, what was the weather like that day? Although very often I can't remember. But occasionally I can. Like I remember one Friday, just a few weeks after Mrs. Thatcher first came to power as Prime Minister. I particularly remember it being a Friday in the classroom at primary school. And I can remember having a lovely, lovely laugh and giggle with Natasha. So I can see Natasha's face all lit up, smiling away. And we were having a lovely laugh. And that was because I showed her a note saying, I love you. And I remember us having a lovely laugh about that. And I remember the same day, walking home, trying to explain myself out of trouble to my girlfriend Elizabeth, who was Natasha's best friend. And you see, that's sort of classic example of a very, very very concentrated focus memory, I can remember Elizabeth, the frown on her face, and I can remember, and I can remember walking back along the school pavement area out of the school gates, trying to explain myself out of trouble, and just after half an hour of grovelling, just about getting away with it. Definitely happy. I forced myself to, definitely, but it just comes to me naturally, because that's the whole way my mind works. I mean, I'm someone who can't stand to be sad or depressed for 30 seconds. So I just won't go there. I forget things just like completely naturally, just like the average person. So although my memory works uniquely in some aspects, forgetting is just completely Joe average, like everyone else. But then sometimes you just can't remember some things. Like, for example, I met this girl, Denise, once at a wedding reception next day. I said, "Oh, hello, Denise. My name's Phil. Nice to meet you." And she said to me, "Yes, I know, Phil. You asked me to marry you last night." So I thought, I have absolutely no recollection of that whatsoever. Often, things are just a blackout. I will not remember some things. That tends to only be the case, though, if I'm very tired, if it's very late at night, and a lot of drink has been taken. I would like to be able to forget a lot of the traumatic memories, particularly because then it would hopefully erase and take away most of the nightmares. My biggest regret is losing my temper so often with both my dad and my mum. That's my biggest regret. Hindsight is a very wonderful, easy thing. I mean, if we all had hindsight, we could use it to our, it would be so amazing. Sometimes I wish I could have more peace of mind and calmness. My biggest regret about worried and anxious is nervousness and panic attacks. Sort of prone to anxiety, like on train journeys and things, because it's something that comes on much too easily, unfortunately, in my life. And that's a huge regret, and if I could change that, I would immediately. Like this, you got this ornament here. I can tell you exactly the date I was given that by my Auntie Jill in Stoke-on-Trent, and I think it was Friday, November the 10th, 1995. Because I can remember exactly, because we were just packing things up for me to go back to Liverpool. And she said, "Take that back with you." And that was the date I went back to Liverpool. I mean, like, this three-piece suite that we're on at the moment, I can remember the day, it always makes me happy. I can remember the day that we got this. It was when I was 19, in 1988-89 academic year. And it was around the time I'd been taking my exams at college. And so that's an example again. I can remember actually, I think it was a Wednesday that we got it in June. And I think the date was June the 14th. And I can remember us going to the furniture store, and I can remember us choosing the three-piece suite, and seeing my friend Jane Williams there. And this antique piece here, for example, we got this, and I can remember the exact date. Monday, July the 23rd, 1990. We got that from an antique store or antique centre just nearby in the countryside. And I can remember that vividly because it's such a happy memory. This is probably it here. My football medal from when I was 12. And that's probably my most cherished thing sentimentally to me of my own achievements. Out of everything I have, that would probably be the one thing I would hate to lose the most. Because if anyone took that away, I'd be sadder than really if anything else, any other item was taken away. If I had to choose one, that would probably be the one item, and that's a runners-up medal of the league when we were living near Watford. Been about 3 people I've met in my life. They've said to me the most amazing thing, which would blow anyone's mind. Anyone in the whole world, if they said this to them, it would blow anyone's mind in the whole world. They said, "I think, Phil, for what it's worth, you're probably the nicest person I've ever met in my life." And that's enough to make anyone feel the proudest thing, in the proudest moment in their whole lives. If I could only choose one thing, in the whole world that I'd like to happen, it would be to get married to someone a similar age to me. Sooner rather than later. I would rather not leave it until I'm after being in my 40s, because I find that a bit painful. I don't know, really. It's like being a twin, really. It's all I've ever known, really. It's I don't know. I mean, I'd be half and half on that. I'd be half for saying, yes, I cherish all the happiness I've shared with people on a really good day. But then again, on a really bad day, when someone rips your life to pieces and things and is really horrible and disgusting, you know, then at times, you come home in tears and things, you think, I just wish sometimes I was Joe Average.